First of all, you can't go wrong with the late, great Harold Ramis directing you in that. Yeah.
What a wonderful director and a wonderful man he was. He directed that film, yes, as a comedy, but the little secret is that it was actually, to him, the journey towards a man's spiritual redemption, one step at a time. And if you watch the film at the very end, there's a time-lapse photography shot that has a man in an orange robe who appears. And that was Harold's nod to his personal set of spiritual beliefs. He felt this was a journey of enlightenment that we're going on. I should point out also that that scene was shot in Montecito.
Right here. That's right. Yep.
And on that morning, we were having lunch at the base camp, and we were visited. Harold's longtime friend, John Cleese, dropped by. Now, I know he was like de facto mayor for a little while here, and he was an acquaintance of mine too, because he was the voice of the ape named Ape in George of the Jungle. So we had lunch, and John's asking, "And what are you shooting today?" And Harold explains to him, well, it's a scene about a man who speaks Spanish, but he doesn't know that he speaks Spanish until he speaks Spanish. And Cleese goes, "I've not heard that joke before." I mean, just imagine the look on my face. I'm making Monty Python Man laugh. We knew we were on to something good. If the joke cracked him up, we were going places.
It's so amazing. There's so many movies you made that I wanted them to show clips of, but we don't have the time, unfortunately. But there's so many movies I would ask you about, but I have to ask you about one. Not many people get to act opposite Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and you did. And you did. You know, that has to be the best.
Badge of honor till the day I die.
Looney Tunes in action.
You know, there's something to be said that you can truly take a lesson in how to, frankly, how to act if you watch Warner Brothers cartoons. I'm not kidding you. I knew this because I was glued to the TV set in the 1970s, but on Saturday mornings. But also, a college professor taught a whole course on this. It's everything you need to know about super objective, punchline, setup, delivery, everything. It's all there. And again, those cartoons, they were subversive humor. They were a product of their time at that time. You know, Bugs and Daffy were pretty racy dudes. I mean, they weren't holding hands and getting along and singing songs and skipping in tandem. They did that over at Disney. At Warner Brothers, they wanted to do stories about cartoon characters who smack each other upside the head with a 2x4, blow stuff up, you know, fun. I loved my time on that job.
Great.
Bugs is a real cool guy, and you know what? Whatever you've heard about Daffy, it's true. He is an asshole. Oh no, it's all about Daffy.
Yeah, you know, and Dudley Do Right, there was another one, you know. You've done a lot of those, you know, and fish out of water kind of stories and things like that you seem to be attracted to in parts that you've played in the past.
It seems like that was a pattern. I mean, I think it showed up in Link. You know, he was the new guy in town. He didn't know how a doorknob worked until he tried it. He wanted to. He went along to get along. You know, a little bit of David Green too, coming into a new world.
Blast from the Past.
Blast from the Past. Sure. It's up there. I think that it really made sense to me, and I latched on to the notion of not knowing what you don't know until you know it. Have you? I know you have. You've seen Being there with Peter Sellers.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that film? If not, put it on your list.
It's one of the all-time greatest movies. So great.
He's grown up in an insular life, and he's in advanced years, and he goes through this journey and see the film. It's great. And at the very end, he's walking off, and he has an umbrella, and he dips he's walking on water, I should say. He walks on the water, and he puts his umbrella in the water and looks at it in this wide shot, just kind of like, would you imagine that? And he keeps walking on water. He didn't know as a character that you can't walk on water because no one ever told him. So he did it anyway. Esoteric, but an important lesson to remember. Yeah.
Chauncey Gardiner. Being There,
Chauncey Gardiner.
One of the great movies. We're going to look at we have our last two clips here, and we're going to come back and talk about the reason he is nominated this year for the Academy Award with The Whale. And before we see that clip we're going to show you from The Whale, we have a clip from another really fine film that won Michael Caine Best Actor Oscar nomination, The Quiet American, in which he plays Paul Fishman, and it was shot in Vietnam, which is really interesting. That must have been an interesting experience.
Absolutely. It was the first Western film made in Vietnam ever, with the support of the Vietnamese Communist government. We were infiltrated in everything, you know. We started in the south, in Ho Chi Minh City, all the way up Da Nang, Hoi An, up to Hanoi. And the story itself, how Philip Noyce, the director, arrived at this property is interesting because he was going to do a documentary about soldiers returning to the country years and years after the fact and reconciling or trying to events and ghosts from their past. And so he was with this group of veterans, and they were in Hanoi in the north. And he was in the south, that's right. And he had taken a visit to the tomb of Ho Chi Minh, and in the gift shop there was a book of poetry that Ho Chi Minh had written while he was in jail. And Philip wanted something to read for the train ride all the way up north, so he bought this book. And when he got on the train, for whatever reason, the clerk had accidentally put a copy of The Quiet American in there instead of this book of poetry, and he had nothing else to read. So by the time he got off the train, he'd read The Quiet American and realized this is the film we have to make. And so he called Sydney, and it turned out that he had the rights also. And that's how it started. When we made this film, it was 2001. This was the film that you were not supposed to see, as according to an ogre who is languishing in jail right now with good reason.
We know the initials might be HW.
And that individual who screened the film one morning, and there were to be notes taken at 8 o'clock, and it was a garden variety screening that happened in Jersey the night before, and they were coming to give notes on. And that morning was the morning of September 11th. And they saw the whole thing right there. We lived through it. And the kibosh got put on the movie. It was the movie that shouldn't be seen. It wasn't for you. Michael Caine championed this movie, took it to Toronto, gave it a screening, and God bless the Canadians, they gave it a standing ovation. And in connection with a piece that ran in the Washington Post called Let the Quiet American Speak, it implored the filmmakers and the world of it to not treat us, we citizens, as children. We need to see this movie, although it was critical of American foreign policy. But that's the whole point of The Quiet American that Graham Greene wrote anyway. He wasn't a fan, and the reason why he was called The Quiet American was because he was dead. So as a work of literature, it still is resonant in Vietnam then as it is today. On the streets of Ho Chi Minh City, little kids will come and hawk copies of The Quiet American that have been, ditto copied somewhere with pencils and, sticks of gum and postcards and stuff like that. It's a picture that I think was prescient in terms of how it hearkened what unfolded in the events that soon became the war in Vietnam. Any war film, it's been said, is an anti-war film, and none of that was lost on Philip Noyce.
Wow. Well said. Here is a look at The Quiet American and The Whale.